embellishing your doublet is how we help, emphasize or actually, make it look better, okay? Certain fabrics look really good, but you still need to kind of frame it up and make it look nice. Now this doublet has what I refer to as a standard trim pattern on it, okay? You'll see this trim pattern in a lot of paintings and stuff like that, and so that's why it's on this particular doublet, okay? It's a very easy trim pattern to do, and basically all I'm doing is following the seams. This does a couple different things. It helps reinforce the seams, and it kind of helps make some nice lines on the doublet. Now this particular doublet, I used a silk bias tape that I made for the trim. That's all. This is it's actually a cotton print. If you look really closely, there's small designs in the cotton print, and then I added the plain gold trim to kind of just highlight it a little bit, give it a little bit of pizzazz, so to speak. But embellishment doesn't necessarily have to be trim. It can be beads as well, okay? And this has a spiral cut sleeve, and then these are actually little buttons that I used to connect the spirals of the spiral cut sleeve. So there's a lot of little different things you can do depending on fabric, and it's really your imagination that holds you back. That's it. It's whatever you want to do. Now on Valerie's, we're going to do an applique piece to it, and we'll show you how to do that when we get to that point. And you can see how we've done the lining on the collar. I'll show you how to do that when we get to that point as well. Now, what kind of trims are out there? There's lots of different kinds of trim out there. I'm going to need your trim so you can get it, carries. Some of the most popular stuff is just plain satin ribbon. Plain satin ribbon is easy to find. You can get it pretty much anywhere. I like the 1/2 to 3/4 inch wide stuff. It is a little bit slippery to use. I would suggest using double-sided tape to hold the ribbon down as you sew. Basically, you take a small 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch piece of double-sided Scotch tape, you stick it on the bottom side, and you can stick it to your fabric, and then you can sew it down. Another method of sewing things down is you actually draw a chalk line. You use that chalk line as your guide as you sew stuff down. I would not suggest actually pinning trim to the fabric. When you pin trim to a fabric, it kind of wrinkles up and it just never lays quite flat. I have some heavy-duty silk ribbon. This stuff is actually a little bit meatier than your standard silk ribbon. I have no idea where I got it, but it's really nice stuff. So so again, you can find this online, that kind of thing. Another popular trim is jacquard ribbon trim. Okay, you'll find this on Cheap Trims and other websites. The Callantyre Trim Merchant, he sells a lot of this stuff. It comes in all different widths and sizes and designs and all kinds of other stuff. If you have a very plain fabric, a solid color, that kind of thing, that's when this stuff comes in handy. With a plain linen or a solid color or anything like that, you can really dress it up with a really nice jacquard ribbon trim. However, I wouldn't put this on a complicated design or fabric much like this one. If I were to put a jacquard ribbon trim on this, it would just become way too busy. And we don't want busy, we want style. And so, we don't want to detract from the wonderful fabric that we've had. Now this one, you can tell I've done a slightly different pattern on. I based this pattern on a loose gown from Janet Earle's Patterns of Fashion, and I kind of just went with the design and had some fun. I also put trim on the sleeve on this one. So you can see I had some fun. There's actually 2 different widths of a woven trim. I'm going to get to woven trim here in a second. So, these braided trims are fun and that kind of thing. So, you can have fun with the trim design. I find that black trim on a busy fabric is fantastic. It really kind of helps break up the pattern a little bit, but it also helps frame it out. And again, it adds a little bit of pizzazz. So be careful with your jacquard ribbon trims. You can find some really, really nice designs online. It just, remember, don't make it too busy. This was a very nice one. I like this one a lot. The wider ones, I tend to reserve using the wider ones for coats and cloaks and stuff like that. I don't generally put them on doublets. I would suggest you stick between a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch wide for a doublet. You can go as small as a 1/4 inch wide for a doublet, but I wouldn't go much thicker than 3/4 of an inch for a doublet. That's just me. Now, woven or braided trims are very popular. This one happens to be a wine French braid trim. This is a very popular design. You can get these all over the place in many, many different colors. Go to the upholstery section of your local fabric store, and they will have these trims. They use them for curtains a lot. You can get them in lots of different colors, and they are so much fun, and they look nice. One thing you want to make sure, this has a direction to it. You can see there's a little arrow on it. So as I sew, I want to make sure all those arrows go the same direction. So when you put it on, that's one thing you do have to pay attention to when you put it on. But braided trim comes again in all shapes inside it. This is just a small corded braid. You can barely see the braid in there. And, this is one that I will be using on a lot of different doublets. Why? Because I have 2 rolls of this, and each one is 72 yards long. So I have a lot of trim in this. But this is a braided trim. It looks more like card weaving, but this is actually a mass-produced trim. I won it for a prize in a tournament, and again, it's a lot of fun. I've only found a couple outfits that it really kind of goes with, Card weaving or inkle weaving is wonderful, creates wonderful trims. These are a little bit thicker, and since they are hand woven, you're not going to be able to get as much of them. It depends on if you're the artist making them or if you know somebody who's making them. Yeah, if you can have somebody make you a whole bunch of trim, that'd be great. But this is difficult stuff to come along. This is another example of what I would call a braided trim or a woven trim. It's got, the thing about these trims is they've got some texture to them. Unlike the jacquard ribbon trims or the satin ribbon, which is just a flat trim, there's actual texture to this. You do have to be careful. You don't want to stretch these as you put them on. If you stretch them, once you wash it, it will shrink back up to its original size and then ruin your doublet. Okay, I have a wonderful coat. It looks like it has scales on it, and I stretch the trim as I put it on, and then now it's got little puffy scales on it. Okay, but it's one of my favorite coats. I still wear it all the time. So, and they come in again different designs. They don't necessarily have to be flat on each side. This one has bumps on each side, and so it can add, looks like a little vine kind of crawling up your outfit, so it can add a little bit of flair. This is what's known as a scallop trim, and you can see it's flat on one side and has like little scalloped edges on the other side. Again, you got to make sure which way these scallops are facing when you put them on a doublet. So you got to make sure they're all kind of syncing up, so to speak. So that kind of thing. Lace is also a very fun thing to put on a doublet or something like that. The nice thing about this is you can put it on and the fabric underneath will show through the lace. It's also fun to put a string of ribbon and then put a string of lace over the top of it, and again, they can show through and you can get a lot of neat little color combinations. Again, your imagination's about the only limit that we can put on this, okay? However much you want to do it, but you gotta, if you're looking for suggestions, Janet Arnold's Patterns of Fashion has a lot of great suggestions in it. Elizabeth's Wardrobe is a great one and the Tudor Tailor also has a lot of great suggestions for what trim designs and stuff to do. How much trim goes on a doublet? Well, that depends on what you want to do with it. I have this doublet, the first one I showed you, has only about 6 yards of trim on it because that's all I had. In fact, I think it has less than that. So this one doesn't have a lot of trim on it. This one obviously has a little bit more, probably closer to 8 to 10. You know, this one has close to 45 yards of trim on it. As you can see, it has lines and lines of trim. But you can see this was a plain blue fabric when I used it, and I added a nice braided, woven trim to it, and then I cut slits in it. This design comes directly out of Patterns of Fashion. So you'll see a picture of this exact same doublet in Patterns of Fashion. That's where I got the idea from, and that's where we went with it. So again, you could do a lot with a little on trim, and okay, there's 45 yards of trim, which means however much I pay per yard, that's how much I gotta, but I got this trim for like 50 cents a yard, so I wasn't too worried about it. So and again, you can see you can do a lot, and I'll let you guys take a closer look at these later. Another thing you can do is beads, and beads and we call them spangles, but that's not a proper term for them. Little shiny round discs. Sequins, thank you. I couldn't find the word. Sequins or period. They would use shells to emulate sequins. I've seen a doublet that's covered in sequins, and they look awesome. So if you do them right, you can really get some nice things. Beads come in all different shapes and colors. Another thing you can use are charms. You can get little charms. These are little beaded charms. They have like a little hood over them, that kind of thing. And I don't know if the camera can see that. I think I'll pull out a couple. But yeah, I mean, these are a lot of fun. And if you apply them correctly, let's see if can the camera see that? Yeah, if you apply them correctly, you can have a lot of fun with beads and trim. Okay. Even on a fighting doublet, I've seen fighting doublets with tons of beads and trim. So this is one of my wife's doublets. Obviously, it matches the other blue one. And you can see it has a lot of beadwork done to it. Those are actually buttons. These are cheap plastic buttons. We cut the shank off the button with a Dremel, and then we drilled 2 little holes in it, and it became a bead. Okay. This one's also got some Swarovski crystals on the sleeve. And so you can see how we've used to dress the sleeves up. Again, plain blue fabric that we have dressed up using an embellishment. There's a charm in the center right here. It's actually a little tulip charm. I can't believe we found those. Those are awesome little beads. And then you can see, we used the buttons as kind of an attachment device. And again, all we did, we literally cut the shank off of these buttons. They just snipped them right off. These are little plastic buttons, and they came out. It looks awesome. I mean, and that's the thing you're looking for. You're looking for just a little bit of flair. That's all you're looking for. Now, if you want to go crazy with beads, you can go crazy with beads. There are quite literally about 1,000 pearls on this doublet. There's also quite literally about 40 yards of trim. Okay, so you can go nuts. Again, we have a plain purple fabric here. At least that's what this started out as, a plain purple fabric, and now it has just been beaded to within an inch of its life. Pearls are fantastic. You can get freshwater pearls at almost no cost. A strand costs less than $1, and you get like 30 pearls to a strand. Okay? And then you can buy, you can just get them by the bunch. Again, you can see we have a whole container full of them left. Okay? So pearls are one of the cheapest things you can get, especially if you get the freshwater cultured pearls. They basically make them in a lab. Okay? And so you're not even hurting oysters. And they also come in different shapes. You can get them in like diamond shapes and you know, star shapes and stuff. Yeah, I mean, they're all sorts, and they are so inexpensive, it's ridiculous. So pearls are a wonderful way to dress up an outfit. In case you're wondering, instead of doing the standard, by the way, this is the actual material. You can see it in the collar that we made for this. Instead of doing a standard doublet where we cut the pattern out and then we added the embellishment, for this one, we actually created the fabric and then cut the pattern out of the fabric. So we added all the embellishment to the fabric first and then cut the pattern out of it. Mostly because when we added all these pearls, it actually shrank it about 30%. So, yeah. So if you're going to go nuts with it, yeah, do a test piece, see how it affects the fabric, and see if it's actually going to work before you go nuts. Okay, and then you can go from there. But something this elaborate, I quite literally took the big square yardage of fabric, and then I sewed the rows of trim on there. I then went through and I cut all the slits. And then we had a couple people go through and pinch and purl, and pinch and purl, and pinch and purl, and pinch and purl. And that, took the fabric from being, a yard and a half, 30% less. And so we had two pieces like that, and from that we were able to cut the pattern for the doublet itself. So we lost about 200 pearls in the cutting, but we sewed on like 1,200. So there, like I said, there's quite literally 1,000 pearls. And you can see we didn't use it in the skirting piece or in the collar piece or in the epaulette piece, just to break it up a bit. Give it a little bit, so where there's actually a point where it relaxes a little bit. And it's gorgeous. I love it. So, I mean, so you can see, you can do pretty much anything you want with your embellishment. Think about it, plan it, okay, that kind of thing. And then after that, you can just go nuts. Let it create itself, okay? Try to find something that matches your fabric. If you don't know what's going to match your fabric, take a scrap piece of fabric with you to the fabric store and then match them up. You'll be surprised how easy that works. There are some wonderful websites out there, cheaptrims.com, Calendar Trim Merchant. They all have wonderful jacquard ribbon trims on them, and you can find lots of neat stuff. If you've got a bargain sewing store somewhere near you, go and dig through what they have. You'll be surprised what you can find. And of course, merchants at your local ward are fantastic. In your local SCA event, I've found so much nice little surprises from merchants. It's been ridiculous. So, as far as cost of trim, that's completely up to you what you're willing to spend. I generally try not to spend more than $1 a yard on trim. But I'm pretty cheap, so that's completely up to you. All right, cool. All right, cool. All right, so I just wanted to get through that.